Well, last week we discussed State Representative Dan Calkins of Illinois, a Republican, mind you, who is seemingly working against an Illinois lawsuit against Governor Pritzker's assault weapons ban after launching a lawsuit of his own, but not wanting to consolidate his case with his other Republican counterparts to achieve victory. It got worse as we learned from insider sources that Calkins also allegedly solicited funds to help with his lawsuit, but then cashed that money into his campaign account. Reeks of corruption. Now we're learning more that the Illinois Supreme Court has recently ruled it will not consolidate the three cases brought by former Republican AG candidate Thomas DeVore against Pritzker's gun law with Calkins' lawsuit as well, bringing them all under one umbrella. That's not going to happen now. The governor is reportedly giddy about this. Scott Kaspar is an attorney and publisher of the Illinois Review. He's a plaintiff in the DeVore lawsuit and joins me right now to weigh in on this. Scott, thank you for being back. Great to have you. Can you explain what's going on? So this started, he launched this lawsuit that from the jump seemed like he was working against Thomas DeVore and you guys in your suit, and now he's starting to get his way even more.
Yeah, thank you for having me, yes. And it sure is interesting what's going on. Thomas DeVore filed these cases. He had the first TRO granted in his case. This law only came through just a little over a month ago. And within days of the law going into effect, Thomas DeVore had filed a lawsuit. And then shortly after that, he had a TRO granted in his favor. And he's since filed two more cases where those TROs have also been granted in his favor. And, and that's 4,700 plaintiffs, Illinoisans, and several dozen federally licensed gun stores that have the effect of the TRO. Calkins didn't want to join any of those. There's many reasons, perhaps why he didn't want to. We thought it was just that he wanted to have all the glory to himself. So he filed his own lawsuit. And now it's starting to look like maybe the fix was in from the start, because in his lawsuit, he didn't want to consolidate with DeVore. Now, here's the thing. The cases were all just filed last month. There's nothing that's gone on in them. But in order to try to keep to keep the cases from being consolidated, Calkins made a deal with the governor to file summary judgment motions. And they filed the summary judgment motions on the same day that they filed their opposition with the Supreme Court, actually, of Illinois, saying they didn't want to be consolidated because now they have this summary judgment motion. Well, if the Illinois Supreme Court wanted to do the right thing, they would have consolidated this all in front of one judge so it can proceed on one schedule, so that the parties can take discovery that benefits all of them. And, the summary judgment motions can be held in abeyance. It's really unusual to file a summary judgment motion that early in any event.
I just want to back up to something that you just said, that Calkins has struck some sort of behind closed doors deal with Governor Pritzker. That's something that you believe is quite clear?
Well, there is a deal. First, we know there's a deal on the summary judgment because they both filed summary judgment motions on the same day. Now, what's really strange is the summary judgment motions are on different issues. If you're going to file simultaneous summary judgment motions, you would think it would be on the same issues or the same set of issues, and it's not. Calkins filed his summary judgment motion on the key issue of the case, the equal protection violations. Governor Pritzker filed his motion at the same time on different issues, on some unrelated procedural issues. What that does is it gives the governor, is basically showing the governor your hand. So now the governor knows what Calkins' case is based on, which is probably no different than what than what was put in the original motion for a temporary restraining order. The fact that it appears that that these exemptions, and just to remind your audience, this assault weapons ban has these exemptions for different classes of people. For example, law enforcement, active military but not retired military, private security like mall cops. And it's not really clear why those exemptions are in there, but it creates classes of people, and that's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the Illinois Constitution, and that's the issue that Tom DeVore, for which Tom DeVore got these TROs, obtained the TRO relief, and so we know there's a deal at the very minimum because they're briefing summary judgment motions on issues that, quite frankly, are not developed enough.
What is Calkins gaining from all of this? Certainly it's not favorability. It's not good graces from his own party, right? This guy was part of the Illinois Freedom Caucus. People thought he was a stalwart conservative, and now this is just it's blowing up. Certainly people in Illinois who follow their state politics are just utterly shocked by all of this, Scott. What's really going on with Calkins? Why is he going so hardline on this issue that we're talking about the Second Amendment that's hanging in the balance here, and he could be sabotaging it in the state of Illinois?
Yeah, and I'm just speculating because I don't know Representative Calkins all too well, but part of me thinks maybe he's going for the glory. He wants to get the victory from the Supreme Court before Tom DeVore does. But the problem is these motions will go first before the judge in Macon County. Perhaps he wins, perhaps he doesn't. No matter what, it's going to be appealed. You can guarantee if he gets a win in Macon County, the governor's office is going to appeal that, and it's going to work its way to the Illinois Supreme Court. And there, you're taking the chances are less likely because you have a Democrat-leaning Supreme Court, and you also have a case with no record. So it's just begging the court to deny the summary judgment relief that Calkins has sought. And that's not the end of the case, but it certainly gives the governor the win that he wants, the win that he desperately needs. And then the governor is going to go right back to those county cases, including the cases pending in Effingham County that Tom DeVore filed, and try to undo the TRO. It just does not look like it's a good idea for anyone to go to the Supreme Court right now.
Scott, last question. Got about a minute left. What are going to be the next steps for the Thomas DeVore lawsuit? How do you guys plan to move forward from here?
Yeah, so Tom's cases, they are consolidated now in front of one judge in Effingham County. It's the judge that granted the first temporary restraining order, and that judge will set a scheduling order for a normal case. It will proceed through the merits. Tom DeVore has filed a number of discovery requests, including requests for admission, to prove that there is no basis in the legislation for these exemptions, that they were just thrown in there willy-nilly. We believe they were thrown in there in order to get enough votes to pass. There clearly was lobbying interests for the private security to be put in there and others. It just doesn't make sense. I suspect we're going to see in the summary judgment briefing that the governor is entertaining, we're going to see all sorts of crazy reasons, perhaps training being one of them for the exemptions. But that's for Tom, in his case, to prove that it doesn't exist. And at that point, it would be probably a good point to go to file a summary judgment motion or to take the case to trial.
Yeah, well, we're certainly praying for justice to prevail here. God bless you, Scott, for the work you're doing, staying on top of this. Thank you for joining the show today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And in case you missed it, President Joe Biden told reporters on Friday that he still has no plans to visit East Palestine, Ohio. Except he didn't say it that clear or concisely. Never would Joe Biden be so articulate. Listen.
I had a long meeting with my team and what they're doing. We were there 2 hours after the plane went down. 2 hours. I've spoken with every single major figure in both Pennsylvania and in Ohio. And so the idea that we're not engaged is just simply not there. And initially there was not a request for me to go out, even before I was heading over to speak. So keeping very close tabs on it. We're doing all the California, sir.
So no, Joe Biden will not be going to East Palestine. He used up all his travel schedule to go to Ukraine. You know who did go to East Palestine, though? I don't need to say it because he made it quite clear where his priorities lie. They're not with Ukraine, they're with you, the American people, as it should be.